You know that feeling when someone makes something look effortless? When they're charming, witty, and somehow turning everything they touch into gold while making self-deprecating jokes the entire time? That's Ryan Reynolds in a nutshell. But here's what most people don't realize. The path from a kid in Vancouver to building a business empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars wasn't some overnight thing. It took 2 decades of strategic moves, a lot of rejection, and an almost supernatural ability to laugh at himself while quietly outmaneuvering everyone else in the room. Today, we're breaking down exactly how Ryan Reynolds built an empire that extends far beyond acting. We're talking Aviation Gin, Mint Mobile, Wrexham Football Club, and a production company that's changing how Hollywood works. And we'll explore the specific strategies that made it all possible. So grab your favorite gin cocktail, or don't, because honestly, water's fine too. Let's get into it. The long game. Let's start in 1991. Ryan Reynolds is 15 years old, landing his first professional acting gig on a Canadian teen soap opera called Hillside. Now, if you're thinking this sounds like a glamorous beginning, let me stop you right there. This was the kind of show where the budget for hair gel probably exceeded the special effects budget. But Reynolds showed up, did the work, and learned something crucial: how to be professional when nobody's really watching. For the next 15 years, Reynolds would become what Hollywood calls a working actor. You know the type. They're in movies you've definitely seen, but you might not remember they were in them. Van Wilder in 2002 gave him some recognition. Blade Trinity in 2004 let him be a whisk-cracking vampire hunter, which honestly feels like foreshadowing now. The Proposal with Sandra Bullock showed he could do romantic comedy. But then came the projects that didn't work. Green Lantern in 2011 was supposed to be his superhero breakthrough. Instead, it became a punchline. The movie cost over $200 million and somehow made everyone involved look like they'd rather be anywhere else. Reynolds has joked about it relentlessly ever since, which tells you something important about his strategy. Own your failures publicly before anyone else can weaponize them. Here's what's fascinating about this period, though. While other actors might have gotten bitter about the roles that didn't land or the movies that flopped, Reynolds was watching, learning, figuring out how the business actually worked. He was looking at actors who had control over their careers, who produced their own projects, who built things that lasted beyond one film cycle. And quietly, he was building relationships with directors, with writers, with executives who would remember him as the guy who was easy to work with, who showed up prepared, who made everyone else's job easier. The entertainment industry loves to reward this kind of patience. Not immediately, of course, but eventually. Deadpool changes everything. Now, we need to talk about Deadpool, because this is where Ryan Reynolds stopped being a working actor and became something else entirely. After Green Lantern, Reynolds became obsessed with getting a Deadpool movie made. And I don't mean he thought it would be a nice project. I mean he spent years fighting for it, pushing screenwriters to get the tone right, convincing executives who thought a violent R-rated superhero movie would never work, leaking test footage to gauge fan reaction when the studio got cold feet. When Deadpool finally came out in 2016, it made over $700 million worldwide on a $58 million budget. Those are the kind of numbers that make studio executives weep with joy. But here's what Reynolds understood that most actors don't. This wasn't just a successful movie. This was proof of concept. Proof that his instincts about what audiences wanted were correct. Proof that he could shepherd a risky project from development through release and deliver massive returns. Suddenly, Ryan Reynolds wasn't just an actor. He was a brand, someone who understood marketing, audience engagement, and how to cut through noise on social media. His Twitter account became legendary for its self-aware humor. He'd roast himself, roast the movie industry, and somehow make it all feel like you were in on the joke with him. And this is where things get interesting from a business perspective, because Reynolds realized something crucial. If he could market this movie effectively, why couldn't he market other things. Why couldn't he take the same irreverent, honest approach and apply it to products that people actually used every day? This wasn't about slapping his name on a fragrance or doing traditional celebrity endorsements. This was about building actual businesses where his involvement would fundamentally change how the company operated and communicated. The business empire. In 2018, Reynolds bought an ownership stake in Aviation Gin. Now, you might be thinking, another celebrity alcohol brand, how original. But Reynolds didn't approach this like a typical celebrity endorsement. He didn't just pose for some photos and collect checks. He became Aviation's creative director and completely overhauled their marketing. The ads became witty, self-aware, and genuinely funny. Reynolds appeared in them, yes, but always with a knowing wink. One ad featured him apologizing for his Golden Globes performance while drinking gin. Another showed him recreating his own commercials in quarantine. The marketing felt personal, authentic, and most importantly, it didn't feel like marketing. In 2020, just 2 years after Reynolds got involved, Aviation Gin sold for Diageo for up to $610 million. Reynolds' stake was reportedly worth around $120 million. Not bad return for someone who just wanted to make funny gin commercials. But he wasn't done. In 2019, Reynolds became an owner of Mint Mobile, a budget wireless carrier. Again, this wasn't a traditional endorsement deal. He took an ownership stake and became the company's creative strategist. The ads featured Reynolds openly explaining that he owned part of the company, so obviously he wanted you to buy their service, but also their prices are genuinely good, so maybe check them out. This transparency was refreshing. Instead of pretending to be an objective spokesperson, Reynolds was honest about his financial interest while actually delivering value to customers. Mint Mobile's customer base grew significantly. In 2023, T-Mobile acquired Mint Mobile for up to $1.35 billion. Reynolds' stake was worth approximately $300 million. Then there's Wrexham Football Club, the Welsh football club that Reynolds and fellow actor Michael McElwenney purchased in 2020. This one's different because it's primarily not about profit. It's about storytelling, community investment, and yes, building a media empire. The documentary series Welcome to Wrexham has been a hit, and the club's visibility has skyrocketed. They've earned promotion from the National League, and the town of Wrexham has seen genuine economic benefits from the increased attention. And through it all, there's Maximum Effort, Reynolds' production company and creative agency. This is the engine driving all these ventures. Maximum Effort produces content quickly and cheaply, embracing imperfection and speed over polish. They've done marketing for other brands too, creating the same irreverent style that made Aviation and Mint Mobile successful. The actual secrets. So what are the real lessons here? What can we actually learn from how Ryan Reynolds built this empire? First, patience compounds. Reynolds spent 15 years learning the business before he had the credibility to take big swings. He didn't rush, he didn't force anything, he just kept showing up and getting better. Second, own your failures publicly. Every time Reynolds jokes about Green Lantern, he's diffusing potential criticism and showing he doesn't take himself too seriously. This makes people trust him more, not less. Third, authenticity scales better than perfection. The Maximum Effort approach deliberately embraces rough edges and honesty over polished corporate speak. In an age where consumers are exhausted by traditional advertising, this transparency is incredibly valuable. Fourth, diversification with genuine involvement. Reynolds didn't just invest in random companies. He chose businesses where his specific skills in marketing and audience engagement would create actual value. He's not a silent partner collecting checks. He's actively building these brands. And finally, humor is underrated as a business strategy. Reynolds has built an entire empire on the foundation of being genuinely funny and self-aware. In boardrooms full of serious people taking themselves seriously, being the person who can make everyone laugh while also delivering results is an enormous advantage. Today, Ryan Reynolds' net worth is estimated somewhere between $350 and $400 million, depending on who's counting and what's included. But the real story isn't the number, it's the method. It's about a kid from Vancouver who learned patience, embraced rejection, developed a voice that cut through noise, and then systematically applied that voice to building businesses that actually worked. Not bad for a guy who started out on a Canadian teen soap opera. If you enjoyed this breakdown, let me know in the comments what business empire you'd like us to explore next. And hey, no pressure, but subscribing would be cool too. Thanks for watching.